Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Solutions, Not Just Problems. We are your hosts, Vanessa K and Be Real. All right, so we're getting back to our topic this week is the DEI. So let's just uh, start off with what is the DEI? DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It is an organizational framework aimed to promote fair treatment, equal access, and full participation of all people, particularly those who have historically been underrepresented or discriminated against based on identity or disability. So that sounds straightforward enough, right?
That is straightforward. And
Dive right in.
yeah, this is a topic that we were trying to come up with something because we did the relationship piece, we did the personal finance piece. And our podcast is a combination of three things. Well, actually four. We've got the relationships, the personal finances or money. Then we have the community, which is kind of like what we're talking about today. And then we got some stuff that are kind of ripped from the headlines, which we're going to get into a little bit more moving forward. But this is a topic that we realized we could create a series, okay, and actually get to the point where we're talking about the good and the bad. We're talking about how people are impacted. There's some stuff going on in the headlines right now that we can talk about. So DEI is a real hot topic. And Vanessa,
Mhm.
just want to let you know I did some research not too long ago, well, actually a couple of days ago, and today did a little bit more. And there's some stuff going on pertaining to DEI. And I don't know if people are aware of this. I'm sure that a lot of you who listen to people like Roland Martin, and some of
Mhm.
podcasters on there who are about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, there's a thing that's happening in our community where 300,000 Black women, okay, have been laid off since Trump became president. Okay. I'm going to say that again. 300,000 Black women have been laid off since Trump became president. What's your feeling on that?
Sounds like an agenda to me.
Wow. An
Right?
agenda.
Went in with an agenda. You know.
Really?
Um, I mean, really, how does that number? Uh, why is it so high? You know,
Well,
it's just.
one of the things is that, like you're saying, it is an agenda, and
Mhm.
one of the things that were at the top of his agenda, and let's just keep it 100. This is not about politics, okay? This is not choosing one side or the other. What
Mhm.
we do is we present the facts, okay, and we are about solutions, not just problems.
Mhm.
What we're trying to do is present the facts and then talk about what we can do to resolve the issues that we're dealing with.
Right.
So, with that being said, let's be honest. One of the things that our president talked about was trying to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mhm.
Okay. So Vanessa's 100% when she says this is an agenda.
Especially when you look at who they went after, right? The federal jobs.
Yes.
And it was written, the behind it, Black women are overrepresented in federal jobs. What does that mean? Like, so we're just gonna fire them? I mean, it just makes no sense to me. It sounded like an agenda.
And, and my question is this, and I've always wondered, how do you sit here and say that there is no need for diversity, no need for equity, and no reason for inclusion?
Hmm.
When we're talking about mankind, we're talking about humankind, we're talking about all races, we're talking about all people. So we don't want to have diversity, meaning that we've got a diverse group of people.
Right.
We don't want to have equity where everybody has, opportunity, not saying outcome, but opportunity.
Opportunity,
And
yeah.
we don't want to have inclusion. Think about that for a minute.
Hmm. On
You
a
know,
small scale, when I was in Rhode Island, my last house. Now, Rhode Island, and I must say, growing up in Providence, Providence is a pretty diverse. Now, I'm not talking about the other side of Rhode Island, the tourist side, right? But I'm talking, where the natives live, and it's pretty diverse. You got a lot of ethnic groups there. I remember
Mhm.
sitting in my last house, I had Portugal on one side,
Yeah,
Italy on the other side,
sure.
Trinidad and Tobago across the street,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Puerto Ricans across the
yeah,
street.
yeah.
And let me tell you, I had the pool, right? So all their children came over, played with mine in the pool, right?
Mhm.
It was so diverse, got to the point where we were trading recipes. I learned how to cook Trinidad Tobago. I learned how to cook Puerto Rican, even the Italians going over there spending Christmas Eve with their culture. And what it did was I found that there was more that we had in common.
Absolutely.
We have differences.
Absolutely. What I have found is that diversity, okay, is not only the Christian thing to do, okay, but it's the human thing to do.
The
To
human thing. Yeah, let's start there.
yeah, to
We know
believe,
everybody's not religious,
yeah,
but at the bare
yeah,
minimum, it's the human thing to do.
yes. And I understand, that we all have our cultures, our ethnicities, our races, and there's a reason why we kind of gravitate towards that because we have something in common. I get that. But at the same time, us judging people
Right.
just based on those factors is ridiculous to
We
me.
got to stop. And I find that that's fair. I think it's fair to the unknown. It's I hate to say it, but we overall, right? I mean, we're 14% of the country, all right? Us
Yes, which
African
is
American,
nothing.
right? We're 14%. So it's really not our culture
There's
overall
nothing.
in this country, right?
Yes.
And we've adapted. We adapt to our environment.
Mhm.
But I know people that have no clue of our community, no understanding of what we do,
No,
and
no.
and don't want to, right? And that to me, that's a fear. You're just afraid of getting to because if you drop that barrier, you'd realize that we have more in common than not.
Well, here's the other thing too, and I'm going to say this. Um, to a certain degree, we do it to ourselves, okay? Meaning that um, rather than being inclusive and inviting people in, a lot of times people are repelling, they're pushing people away. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that everybody needs to agree with it,
Yeah,
but
but is that a reaction?
is that a
Is that a reaction to an action? You
oh,
know,
absolutely. Two things can be true at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So there's two sides to the story. Just like we're going to talk about in a minute, there's two sides to this diversity, equity, and inclusion story too.
right, right.
So I'm not sitting here saying it's just one or the other. I don't believe in that. I believe that yeah, that person has a point too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but I do think that we need to be more inviting, in terms of letting other people in that have good character,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that have the morals, that have everything that we're looking for, because most people, to be honest with you, that don't want to be bothered with those people, they're probably a little shady.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I deal with all types of people,
Mm-hmm.
black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter to me.
And what
Male,
about the same thing for let's get out of race? What about LGBT? Right? We shouldn't be judging them either. It should be inclusion on all levels,
well,
especially when it comes to employment. I know understand that people may have their views, their
mhm,
spiritual views on that or whatever.
no,
But
sure.
when it comes down to working, just treating people like general human beings, giving them fair education, for
Always,
employment, fair wages, we got to let all of that go and stop judging.
always,
You know,
always, always. You need to respect everybody.
exactly,
Doesn't
exactly,
necessarily mean you have to agree with everybody, but you need to show respect to everybody,
exactly.
regardless of their gender, their sexual orientation, their race. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Respect is something that is universal, in my opinion.
Yep.
And
Same with disabled people.
absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely, and show them the respect and provide the assistance that they may need. So if I see a disabled person and they're trying to get through, I'm gonna say, move out the way. Good morning, how you doing?
Yeah.
Give those people the respect, you
Mhm.
know what I mean, that they deserve because they're human beings too. So
We
if
had when I worked at the bank, we had our floors would be like 100 plus people per floor, right? And the building had 11 floors, so that
Mhm.
that was a pretty big building, right? And I was the safety ambassador. So we would practice periodically, like fire drills, getting out of the building, and pushing that safety across the board. So people knew what to do in case of an emergency.
Mhm.
And there was one guy who was literally in a wheelchair, so I had assigned a couple of guys to him. If this ever happens, I need you to pick him up and walk him out the building.
Mm.
Your job is to get him, not to clear out the conference rooms and all of that. And we had to do a couple of those drills, but we had to incorporate him into that because if something ever happened, we can't just run out and leave him there. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And he was so appreciative of that. He was like, "Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for thinking
Absolutely.
about that," because people don't think about that.
All the time. Whenever I see somebody who has maybe, is in a wheelchair or have a disability or what have you, always, you know, hold the door for them. You know what I mean? Ask them if they need of any assistance, if they're carrying packages or whatever. You help them out.
Right.
And that's the human thing to do.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
man, boy, this just took us down
The
a
whole rabbit hole. Oh, this whole conversation is going to take me there because when I was reading it, I was getting stirred up now.
yeah. This is going to
I'm
be.
getting stirred up.
Yeah, I think this is going to be something that, it's going to start a conversation, but also it is something that there's so many layers to it,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
many different layers to it. And as you're talking about it, you're like, wow, and like you said earlier, this is not just about race, you know. So we don't want to make this so that everything is about black and white and
Right.
black people being disenfranchised or being disrespected. No, it's not about that because there's
Because we
other
have it on
people.
all different levels in this
Yeah,
country.
yes.
I mean, it's on every level. So,
All right, want to take a quick break? At BSM, we transform ideas into results. With high performance websites, strategic digital marketing, and intelligent business solutions, we help brands stand out and scale with confidence. Ready to elevate your brand? Let's make it happen. Visit brandstrategymarketing.com today.
so be real. In terms of wages and opportunity, how does the DEI initiative support marginalized groups like women, people of color, the LGBT community?
Um, Basically, it's helping to level the playing field through mentorship, leadership training, and equitable hiring practices. So people are able to, basically get the help they need, and get the assistance that they need to be on what I would consider to be an equal playing field. Because let's be honest, we're pretty much going to hire the people that we feel are like us and can relate to our culture. Just as a business owner, I was thinking about this earlier today. You know, a lot of people are going to hire people that they can relate to.
Hmm.
They're going to hire people that probably look like them, that talk like them, that have the same interests, that maybe went to the same schools, you
Yeah, we
know?
talk about that all. That's the coffee. We call that the coffee, the kitchen coffee room
Yep,
hiring. You're
yep,
standing by the coffee room, the coffee machine in the kitchen, talking about who you're going to hire, and it has nothing to do with merit, qualifications. It's all, oh, my cousin needs to needs a job. Yeah.
yeah. A lot of it, like you said, is just pure nepotism,
Hmm.
where people just hire people that are in their family, or
Yeah.
people that they know, or people that they've worked with in the past, you know? And this is what really used to bug me. And I used to want to just go into an interview and be like, let's cut out all this mess right here.
Right.
Okay. No, seriously,
What about the questions?
listen, I hate interviewing. I'm gonna tell you straight up. It's not, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't go back to work and
Hmm.
work for anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to interview with you.
I
Okay.
think I'm there too. Like
All
once
right.
you come out, it's hard to go back and that's what I thought of them daggone interview questions.
Listen, I don't have time for this nonsense. You show me five people that can do what I do.
All
And if
right.
they can do it, hire them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And as a person, it's like, I mean, I'm a good dude. I'm a team player. Every job I've had, and I'm not bragging, but I've been the top 5 percentile of just about every
Hmm.
job I've ever had.
Hmm.
So you're getting somebody who, has the trophy shelf, can show you the trophies and this and that. And you're questioning, what it is that I'm doing. What are you looking for? If you see
Hmm.
someone that fits the part and they can get the job done, hire them.
Right.
all this, well, we'll get back to you next Tuesday and this and that. Look, I got the job or not. You know, I couldn't, I
Right.
couldn't, I couldn't really
Right.
go
It's a
through.
lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, and now they're talking. I haven't looked for a job, Vanessa, since 2011. No, matter of fact, I haven't looked for a job.
Lucky you.
No, 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 no. I haven't looked for a job since 2000.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been 25 years since I filled out an application. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Hmm. Yeah.
So now, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's like, do I fit the culture or not? And
Hmm.
that's really what it comes down to, you know,
And the
because
wages, really, when you see the difference in wages between men and women, between people of color and not, I remember I was told that I had to go to school. I had my issues with higher education, but in order for you to get any further, you have to go to school, and I knew that there were people on that floor that were not educated and they were getting paid higher than I was. It's just the and the excuses that we put in. We think that people don't understand that, right? When he was telling me that, yeah, you got to go to school, we got to bring you up, and but I'm saying there's people on this floor that didn't go to school and are making more than I am.
did
Why do
you
I
say
have to
that?
be the
Did you
one to
say
go to
that?
school, right?
Did you say that?
Oh yeah. And he's like, well, I can't be accounted for them, but I'm accountable for you. And in the promises, I mean, that's a different topic, but some of the excuses that they made, it didn't make sense to me. Didn't make sense at all. But I did go back to school. I did get my degree, and I did it for myself though.
Okay, what time frame are we talking about? How long ago was this?
Oh, this was back in 2013.
Okay, let me ask you. Because during that time, I believe that the so-called diversity, equity, inclusion thing really started to kick in.
Hmm.
Probably around the second Obama term. Is probably when we started really having this conversation. Um, so my question is this: do you feel that diversity, equity, and inclusion back then wasn't something that corporate America was really thinking about? And do you feel that that was one of the reasons why, you find yourself in a position where, you wasn't hired on what they call merit, you know? Because that's the new thing now. Everybody's being hired on merit. Okay, here's my merit. Okay, this is you're seeing it right here with my resume. You're seeing my merit. Okay, so when do I start?
Right.
Because
Right.
we're saying diversity and equity and inclusion is all done. Okay.
Hmm.
So you're looking at my merit. I check all the boxes. When do I start?
Hmm. Right.
Because now you have no excuse.
Hmm.
Basing it just on
I,
my
you know,
expertise, my experience, my education, I check all the boxes.
mhm,
You got anybody else to check all the boxes?
right.
And
And
this is
I
why I
bet.
get frustrated with the interview process, Vanessa, because
Mhm,
I know who I am. You know who I am. You're interviewing me. You're feeling, how I'm coming across, but yet you've decided you're going to go. And one of the things about me, I can say I've been lucky that when I interviewed for a job, most of the time I got the job. I would say, 8 times out of 10. So I was,
mhm,
this is going way back to when I worked at Benny's and,
mhm.
Cooley Roofing and all those type, pretty
See,
much
now
back.
I think back then that's when we were based on true merit. I worked at and I can name the bank because it's no longer in existence, but when I started at Fleet Bank, that
Mhm.
was true merit. Like you
Mm,
went in. If you and it was his culture because we all know back then, the president of Fleet Bank did start as a teller, so
mm,
he worked his way up. So he believed in that hard work. If you prove yourself and do what you do, and do it well, we'll promote you. And that's the culture that. And I got promoted. I went up the chain back then. That's the 80s, 90s, 2000, and then I came to North Carolina. And all of that, what times had changed, right? You need a
mm,
degree, blah, 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 blah,
mhm.
got the degree, still was going through the blah, 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 all of that. And you could really see where that merit was gone. You could see the distinguished, you could see the lack of diversity. You
Mm.
can see the how people get treated differently, just based on their color or, so yeah.
Let
Uh,
me ask you a question because now, when you moved from Rhode Island, okay,
mhm,
which is where you're originally from,
mhm,
to North Carolina, would you say there was a significant shift in terms of how they, looked at candidates? Like you said, when you was in Rhode Island, it seemed like it was more merit based.
mhm.
Down
Now,
in North Carolina, it seems like they were kind of having you jump through hoops a little bit.
oh yeah, because keep in mind when I was in Rhode Island, I worked for the bank for 18 years. So things could have been changing. It just didn't affect me because I was already there, right?
Yeah,
When I decided to move to North Carolina, I didn't move for my job. I knew my job career was going to take a beating because the industry down here is more medical, not so much financial, right? My background is in financial. So I knew I was going to take a hit. I moved here for my kids' education, right? But when I got here, and I was able to go to a bank, that was the first thing. The culture changed. You need a degree. So you're starting right at the bottom. We don't care how many years of merit that you have and how capable you are of doing um, the job. You're going to start right at the bottom, and never even got close to being up there, even with the degree. After I got the degree, all the promises made, it just didn't pan out. So that, like I said, that happened in 2013, and Vanessa became a business owner by 2017.
yeah, and that's
And
what
it's real.
happens too. And one of the things I tell people, if you find yourself in a position where you're not being treated the way that you need to be treated, or the way you feel you need to be treated, or the culture is not what you're looking for, my advice is to go and look for another job or look at other opportunities. But don't leave your job in the meantime. Do what you have to do. I've seen people just up and leave. I'm out of here. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, no,
No,
no, don't do that.
yeah. Keep your job. And trust me, within 3 to 6 months, especially today, you can find a job pretty quickly, especially if you're working. And let me just tell you, if you're working, you have a much better shot at finding a job than if you're unemployed.
Hmm.
Okay. There's something about it. I don't know what it is. It's almost like credit. If you have good credit, it's a lot easier for you to be able to navigate a little bit.
Right.
Have a job already, it's almost like offers come out of nowhere.
Yep.
Maybe they feel like, you're a little bit more trustworthy. Maybe they feel like you're a little bit more reliable. Like there's a reason why this company is keeping you around, But yeah, never leave a job until you have a job. And then with
Absolutely.
today, with Indeed and all these other things that you can do, LinkedIn and so forth, you can find a job probably within 3 to 6 months.
Right. Right.
So deal with what you're dealing with, handle what you got to handle, and understand that. And this is the other thing too. And I'm not telling everybody how to think. I'm just telling you from my perspective. This is how I look at it. That job is not your job.
Right.
That job is a job.
Hmm.
Okay. And the reason why you're there is because you are helping that company make money.
Hmm.
Okay. So when you get to the point where you are no longer making that company money, you're expendable.
How many times do we hear people work right up to retirement? And as soon as they get ready to collect that, boom, they're fired, laid off.
I've seen it. I've seen it happen a couple of times. Yep. I'm talking about within months,
Yeah. Yep.
you know? So, all right.
Okay, so we're gonna stop right there for a quick break, and we'll be right back. Dreaming of a new beginning? Finding the perfect place or getting your home sold at the right price can feel overwhelming. Call Vanessa Kay, your local real estate expert. Understanding that buying or selling a home is a big decision, she'll guide you through every step, from finding the home suited for you or advising on how to price your home to negotiating the best deal. And it all starts with a free consultation. Why not schedule yours today? Welcome back, everyone. Okay, be real. So let's talk about the DEI in reference to attracting and retaining talent. How does an inclusive workspace benefit employers? Not the employee, but the employer.
Well, it leads to higher engagement, lower turnover rates, and better overall retention, which improves organizational stability and culture. And this is what the numbers are saying. This is not just our opinion. It's basically saying that most companies, when you have diversity, and a diverse in terms of race, in terms of gender, or what have you, the chances are the company is going to be more profitable, and it's also going to be a much more acceptable organization to the community. Because keep in mind, we live in a community right now, or we live in a country, I'm sorry, right now, where I believe about two-thirds of the people are Caucasian, about 13% is Black, about 18% is Hispanic, and the rest is other. Okay. And that number is starting to come down considerably to where it's almost coming to a 50-50 split. They anticipate what, the next 20 to 30 years, I believe.
So you
Let's
mean 50-50 with Caucasian and then all
Yes,
others?
exactly. So that number in terms of whites, which is just around 65, 67% in that range, okay, is going to dwindle down considerably, and it mainly comes from the races
Hmm.
mixing, you
Hmm.
know, and we don't have the pure races, for lack of a better
Right.
word,
So
you
what
know?
is all of this about, right? We don't even
Yes,
have pure races anymore.
yes.
So
So we've got a lot of people mixing with one another. And as a result, corporate America has to pivot, you know, not only from an employment standpoint, but who they're marketing to, And right now, we're dealing with a situation with this Cracker Barrel thing. For those of you that aren't aware of what's happening, okay, Cracker Barrel changed its logo from being what was it, old
old
man cracker,
timer,
old
old timer.
timer, old timer, which we know what old timer is, but we're not going to, that's for another day. But the old timer was taken away, and then they just had the Cracker Barrel with the name, and it was like an oval, kind of like almost like a Range Rover or whatever. It's an oval shaped in the shape of a football, and it was the traditional letters, which was that funny looking yellow and the
Hmm.
burgundy looking color, But they decided because they lost 18% in the market, in terms of, I guess, their stock price went down by 18%.
Because they
And,
changed the name to old timer.
oh, but it's more to it than that. Your President Trump, our president, Donald Trump, decided he was going to weigh in on this and say, "What made you go back to this new logo? We should put the old logo back." So between the pressure of them losing money, in terms of stock, and the president weighing in and saying, "Hey, let's go back to the new logo," they now switched it back to the old logo. Unbelievable, unbelievable. But that,
Mm. Wait, he didn't have nothing better to do than to get involved with that.
of course not. We please, we don't want to. I'm trying to not go down this rabbit hole, folks.
Okay, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna
I'm,
be
no,
good.
I'm trying not to do this seriously because I don't know how to have this conversation and not speak the truth.
Hmm.
Okay. And not speak the truth based on the facts of what we're seeing, good and bad.
Right.
And I'm trying to stay away from this political stuff, but every time they keep drawing me back in. But go ahead.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um, Another pro to it is reflecting America's change in it reflects the DEI reflects America's change in demographics, right? As America becomes a majority minority. Wow, that's a word. Majority minority country.
That's
Organizations are
what we're just
embracing.
talking about. Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
what we're just talking about. Yeah.
They're embracing DEI. Are better positioned to serve, the organizations embracing DEI are better positioned to serve diverse communities, foster relationships, and build reputations aligned with social realities.
Yeah, in other words, things are changing.
Hmm.
Things are changing. And like we mentioned a minute ago, and I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, we're going to be closer to a 50-50 split in the next 20, 30 years. And America has to prepare themselves for that, you know. And it's unfortunately, there's a lot of people out here who aren't preparing themselves for what's to come. And there are certain people out here that want to go back to an old way of thinking, not just when it comes to diversity, but when it comes to technology and, a lot of things that are happening right now. And you've got to be able to pivot.
Hmm.
And like they say, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
that's why it's baffling to me that word majority, minority. It's baffling that we're still even contending with diversity today.
Um, well, it- it's a learned behavior.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When you teach your children to formulate relationships based on how people look, you know, that in itself to me is sad,
Hmm.
you know. And you can come out and talk about all this diversity, equity, and inclusion all you want, but then you're at home teaching your children how to hate people based on, whatever their situation is, which is crazy to me.
And instead, we should be taking lessons from our children. I remember when my son was 5 years old. And this is what I mean by that. He was 5 years old in kindergarten, first grade, somewhere around there. And he used to reference this girl, Samaria. He would reference her, come on, hey, me and Samaria did this, and she's my best friend, and blah, 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 blah. And when we met Samaria, she had alopecia of the hair. She had no hair. She was completely bald. But not once did my son ever reference her like that. We never even
Mm,
do it. Like he never, like the pure mind of kids. He never always called her by her name,
mhm,
my best friend, never once did we realize that she had a condition,
mm,
until we met her, So when that's how we should be as human beings, right?
exactly.
Um, it's just sad. It's sad. The DEI strengthens the sense of belonging for historically marginalized groups. It promotes inclusion in diverse workspaces and communities and improves communication and empathy across racial and ethnic lines, strengthening democracy and social cohesion.
So my question is this, right? If DEI strengthens all of this, and I'm sure as a result, it makes all of us better people, right?
Hmm.
Um, what's with the backlash? What's with DEI? What's with, people who've decided that they no longer want diversity, equity, and inclusion? How do you get to that point where you say, you know what, all this, let's say, progress that we've made, we just want to do away with it, you know?
Right.
And how is that going to come about? And what I'm really baffling to me, and it's kind of really odd that there's not enough of a backlash. There's not enough of a fight, and that people are kind of laying down and just saying, okay, it is what it is. I'm just going to go along to get along. Nah, nah. We need to get out here and say, you know what? Until we have it so that everyone has the same opportunities, not the same outcome, okay? We need to continue as a people. And I'm
Mhm.
not talking about as Black people or brown people, or I'm talking about as human beings. We need to get to the point where we say, you know what? Enough is enough.
Right.
Enough is enough,
Right.
and we need to make it so that, like we talked about and we've been talking about, that everybody is treated with respect, you know,
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like everybody or agree or feel like you need to fit into their culture. But regardless, when you see somebody, greet them, open the door, thank you, please, just a common courtesy. And if we're hiring for a job, and there's an opportunity, take into consideration who that person is, what they've accomplished, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses, just like you would anybody else.
Right.
So we really got to get to the point where if we're going to do it based on merit, then let's do it based on merit.
And I think that's why it's difficult to get to that point because this is an issue that really starts at home. Everybody has to make this decision. It starts with themselves first. So I think that's part of why it's so hard. I think we were all in an uproar, what, a couple of terms ago. Remember the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah.
That was blatant, it was on TV every day, with blatant racism and all of that. But then we just, like you said, we have to do something about it once and for all. Like, we need to solve this. But I do believe that it starts at home, like how you train your children, how you view people, how you treat people, it starts there.